hello again. This is John Lundquist from Paladin Academy, and this is a lesson on uh, the decimal system, the number system that we use, and actually everybody in the world uses, and it's lesson 1.1 intermediate algebra. So it's unit 1, lesson 1. This is pretty much the beginning of intermediate algebra, and everybody should know how our numbering system works, the decimal system. The decimal system is a base 10 numbering system because we have 10 digits that we use, starting with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we got these symbols, and the Western world got them from the Arabs, who got them from the Hindus. That's why we call it the Hindu-Arabic numerals. And the Western world got these numerals from this guy right here. He was Leonardo of Pisa, or Leonardo Fibonacci. I guess that was a nickname. And he wrote a book called the Book of Calculations in 1202 AD, which introduced this system. And he is from, we call him Leonardo of Pisa because he's from Pisa, which is right here in Italy, and is famous for the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which Galileo is famous for dropping. He dropped 2 balls off of. Galileo dropped. Here's Galileo. He dropped 2 balls of different weights, and he had somebody downstairs, I guess, and they watched him and hit the ground at the same time, which showed that gravity, the acceleration due to gravity, is a constant for, and it doesn't matter what weight the objects are. Now, of course, if you drop a piece of paper, it falls less than a ball because of air resistance. So you have to take an air resistance into account. So things that have a bit greater surface area, of course, are going to fall slower than things that are, aerodynamic. But anyway, so what Leonardo of Pisa did, is that he went around the Mediterranean, and he traveled from Pisa here, and he traveled and he went to Egypt and Turkey. He probably went to the Mideast, to Israel, almost Palestine then. And he probably went to Greece, and then he went back home. And he studied at he noticed that the merchants were using a different numbering system than he was. He was using Roman numerals, which are very cumbersome, and they don't have it wasn't a place value system like our system was. And he studied under the Arabs, and the Arabs, who had got their numbers, actually borrowed them from the Hindus, and they borrowed them from the Indians, and they probably had trade, this trade with the Indians and or Hindus, and they adapted their system because it was a better system than what the West was using. And there's 2 things about the system that is important. One is it's a place value system. It didn't have a place value system before this. The Roman numerals was a weird system where you had 1 and 2 and 3, and then 4 was really a subtraction. This 1 meant this is a 5. V was the symbol for 5. Then you subtracted 1 from 5 to get 4. Notice that they started out with 1. They didn't start out with 0. They didn't even have a 0. They didn't even know what a 0 was. And that was the second most important thing that he introduced, was a 0. The 0, because a 0 took up a place. And it took up a place that meant I don't have any zeros in a certain place, which allowed you to or allowed a person to create a number then that was very, very big or very, very small. The small part of it goes this way, and the fraction part, it's divided by the decimal point here. This decimal point divides the fractional part to the very, very tiny to the very, very, very large. The whole numbers start here and go very, very large. So he wrote a book called The Book of Calculations, and he introduced a system. And in about 200 years, the time didn't fly like they have on the internet now. It took about 200 years before Europe adapted it. But once they adopted it, it changed everything. It changed science. It changed mathematics, because numbers are now easy to understand. So let's talk about the numbering system a little bit, the decimal system. So the decimal point is a very important part of it. The decimal point separates the whole numbers from the fractions. It's very interesting that the debate still, this is the decimal point as far as the point, the symbol for the point itself is not universally accepted. There's a big debate, and the world is divided whether to put a comma here or a point or a line even, which is very interesting. It's funny that this such a standard thing is debated, but it is. And then some places use a point here for every 3 digits, and every 3 digits represents 1,000 count, because we can go from 0, 0, 0 to 9, 9, 9, which is 999 plus the 0 is 1,000. And then we would go here. Once we hit 1,000, this is 999 is the biggest. We can go in these 3 digits, and if we add 1 to 999, we get 1,000. So let's just do a couple. Let me just put a couple things in here. Let's take 372. Okay, so this is the number 372. The reason it's 372 is the 3 is in the 300ths place, the 7 is in the 10ths place, the 2 is in the 1's place. So what we're doing really is saying 3 times 100. We take the digit times its place value to determine the value of that place. And the 7 is in the 10's place, so 7 times 10 is, and then plus 2 times 1. And so we have 370, and then 2 times 1 is 2. So we say 372. And most people, when they look at this number, they don't realize that they're doing all this math in their head and saying, oh, I have 3 in the 100's place, 7 in the 10's place, so on. If I put 2 and a 5 here, this we can continue on going the same thing. It's a digit times its place value. And notice that what happens is we have, we're really dividing by 10 going this way. You know, 1,000 divided by 10 is 100. 100 divided by 10 is 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 1 divided by 10 is 1/10. We call this a tenth. A tenth. T-E-N-T-H. The tenth, the TH makes the 10 a fraction. And we have 2 times 1/10 plus 5 times 1/100th. And then we call this a hundredth. Hundred, T-H-S. Hundreds. We call it the hundreds place, or 1, and then we'd say hundredths, or well, we'd say 100ths. 100th, yeah, hundredths. So yeah, you'd have the S. Okay, so let me just erase that. So I'm gonna put down the rest of this. So I have plus 2 times a tenth is really 2 tenths. 2, I have this over 1. We multiply fractions. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 10 is 10. Plus, then we put this over 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 100 is 100. And this looks like a 51, so I'm going to erase that. So now, what we do is we take this 25 here, and what I'm really doing is I'm multiplying this by 10 and multiplying this by 10. I add these two together and I get 25 hundredths. So the way, and then what we do is at the end of the whole numbers we put and. Very important. So we say 372. We don't say 370 and 2. We just say 372, no ands. But we have an and between the whole number and the fraction. So 372 and 25 hundredths. Most people say 372.25. I mean, that's what everybody does, but it's really 25 hundredths. Now, I'm just going to fill in the rest here. So this is the thousands area. So let's put, I don't know, 4, let's put maybe 408, 5, what haven't I used? 1, 9, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 7, 0. Wow. So this is the hundredths place, the thousands, the millions, the billions, and the trillions. And then you go quadrillion, and then I think maybe a septillion. That's, you know, and it goes up to about 10 different spots, and then they quit naming them. I think it's decadillion is the 10th one. So what we say then is 70 trillion, 234 billion, 519. So you notice we say this as a 100 kind of a thing, and then we attach the million word to it. So this is 70 trillion, 234 billion, 519 million, 408,372, and 200 and 25 hundredths. Now if I put a 4 and a 7 here, this would be 2,547 10,000ths. It would be 2547 over 10,000. 10,000ths. Then notice that the number of digits here equals the number of zeros underneath. And we usually write this as a fraction, and this is and. But, you know, most of the time, like if you write a check, if you had a check for 70 billion, that'd be great. So if I had a check, let's say for $205.35, you'd say 205, and then you'd say and 35/100ths dollars. That's what you write on the check. And plus this would be in the money area. And sometimes sometimes you write in the money area like this. So you make it a fraction. So I've seen, you can do it both ways. Banks will accept either way. But when you write it out in the bottom of the check, you write that. So I hope that. Oh, one other. Then we got on the worksheet. I mentioned the worksheet. The worksheet we have. You're going to be asked about place value and then writing it out like I just did. So they're going to ask what place is this 8 in? Well, the 8's in the 1000s place. 1000. 1000. What place is this 5 in? What's in the hundreds place? 100. THS hundredths. What's this 5 in? It's a 100 millions place. 100 million. What's this in? That's 100 billion. What's the 7 in? It's in the tens place. What's the 7 in? It's the 10,000ths place. So that should do it. It was a little longer video than I thought, but I hope that explains the decimal system. So good luck with the worksheet. So actually there'll probably be lesson 1-2 and 1-1. And then we have good to rounding, and then that's a different worksheet. So okay, so good luck. Bye.